of the artist's soul. I have with me my good friend and one of Chennai's most well-known people here, Shreekumar Varma. Before I get on to introduce Shree, I must thank every one of you who is here to have helped us start on time. One of the things we always pride ourselves with is starting and finishing on time. So this program will last 90 minutes and will close at 8:29, 8:30. You can time it for that. And my name is Avis Vishwanathan. I see a lot of new people here, so I will introduce myself. And I'm blessed to be curating this series, The Artist's Soul. But let's first tell you about Wandering Artist, this beautiful space that's come up here in our Apuram. And it'll be only appropriate to tell you why the Wandering Artist is here in the first place. I'll do it my way, Sriram.
Please.
Right? So, to me, Wandering Artist is the most happening place in Chennai. This is where artists come to express themselves. This is where seekers come to kind of immerse themselves. This is where practitioners come, and this is where experimenters come. And this is across all forms of art. And there are continuous programs that are happening here all the time. It's a 3-month-old facility. And if you've not looked around and if you've not checked the calendar out, please do that. We have with us here today our hosts, which is Kaveri Punappa, an artist, Kaveri Puvana, an artist in her own right, and also the founder of the Wandering Artist, and Sriram Iyer, my young, dynamic friend, who runs Nalanda Way and also is a co-founder at Wandering Artist. So thank you, Kaveri and Sriram. Can we give them a big round of applause for getting us going with these kind of exciting programs here at Chennai. Why do we do the Artist's Soul? What's the Artist's Soul all about? So the Artist's Soul is really about people like Shree here, people like Ram there. Ram was my guest in February. We had Riku Vinayak Ram in January, and we had the Dhananjayans last month in March. We're going to have Keshav, the famous artist and cartoonist, in May. So we're really talking to artists here about their lived experiences. What have their life journeys been like, and what can we learn from them about our own lives, what we can do with some nuggets of perspective and wisdom with them. That's really what the Artist's Soul tries to do. And these are reflective conversations. So the way it's structured is, for about 50-55 minutes, I'll be in conversation with Shree, and then we'll come to you, to the audience, for your questions and your interactions, and we'll close at 8:30. Now, why do I do the Artist's Soul? And I cannot say I without including Vani, so it will be a we now. So why do we do the Artist's Soul? Vani is my wife, my friend, my soulmate, and for both of us, the Artist's Soul and a few other events that we curate across the city every month is a way of expressing ourselves. And we find it very, very meaningful to be doing this at a time when we are personally going through a very, very difficult phase in our life. We're going through a bankruptcy. We're surviving one, actually, each day. And so if you want to know more about it, please do look me up on Google. You will find that there is a website, avisvishwanathan.in, and there's a blog that I write daily, avisvishwanathan.wordpress.com. And there is also my book, Fall Like a Rose Petal. So that will tell you why we do programs like this. But the summary is that to us, our higher purpose in life, what we wake up every morning to do, is to inspire people to be happy, despite their circumstances. I think people always, most of us, and I was like that for the longest time, we tend to postpone happiness. We make it conditional and we say, if I have this, then I will be happy. And so we, through this catharsis of about 10 years now, we discovered that it is possible to be happy despite the circumstances. And that's why our higher purpose is inspiring happiness. And that why we curate these interesting events. And the one relating to artists is, for me, a great opportunity to sit literally at the feet of great people, friends like Shree, performers, artists who have seen life, and share notes with them on what they see the whole journey of life to be. So on that note, having introduced Wandering Artist and the artist's soul, let me welcome you, Shree. Thank you for joining us this evening. How are you feeling?
Thank you. Just speaking to the mic, can you hear it?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think many years ago there was a movie, a MGR movie called Sangir Murangu, and there was this song in that, "Anda Naal Perukku Nandri." Davis, Vani, Kaveri, Sriram, and the Anjavadu person, Vinod. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. So happy. So half your job is done. I am happy. Because I am a wandering artist even when I'm sitting still. And I'm the only one who can show you the soul of the artist. She's sitting there.
Beautiful. Yeah, thanks Geeta for joining us. And there's Geeta also. I invited Geeta to sit in the front row, but she somehow wanted to be quietly tucked away somewhere at the back. Do you miss her?
She's there, I know she's there.
So, let me also take this opportunity to, I won't do a formal introduction of Shree, but I'll tell you how I met Shree. I didn't, of course, there are a few people that would not know Shreekumar Varma. I was not among them. I knew him, I knew of him, and I had never met him. And then sometime in 2014, I remember a common friend of ours, Shashi Nair, threw a party at Shreekumar Varma's place. That's very interesting, right? When you can throw a party at somebody else's place. But Shashi is capable of all those things. So it was a get-together, more than a party. It was a lunch for everyone to, in the writing, publishing space, journalists, all of us to get together. It was a loose confederation of people. There was no body or a club or association, but it was just a bunch of people getting together. And we visited Geeta and Shree, and that's the first time I met Shree. I had a keen interest to meet Shree. One was because, how often in life do you connect with somebody who's royalty, right? Who's connected with the Travancore royal family. So having lived in Kerala, studied in Kerala, worked in Kerala, I had this desire to meet somebody who is a descendant from the Travancore royal family, and that happened.
You're going to say descended from something.
And the other was for all the writing that he does. So that moment came along, and then as a matter of keeping in touch, we were in touch, and I sent him an invite for the launch of my book, Fall Like a Rose Petal, in August of 2014, and I least expected him and Geeta to come. And that's when I saw that the man sitting next to me is fundamentally, I think royalty, writer, all that comes later now. Fundamentally an extremely warm and a very, very down-to-earth person, a wonderful human being. So to me, Shreekumar Varma is a wonderful human being. And when I called him in February and told him that, Shree, let's talk to each other, have this conversation at the Artist Soul, and I introduced the Artist Soul to him, and he accepted the invitation. It was over the phone. I didn't have to set up a time to meet him, so he was accessible, and I was able to speak to him over the phone and finalize the date for today. And I went away to Mysore on a family trip. We had a wedding in the family, and while at Mysore, we visited R.K. Narayan's house, and it's a beautiful place. If you ever go to Mysore, you should go there, because you can feel the man's presence there. And right up there on the wall was a little inscription. I mean, it was like a quote pasted on the wall. And it said that you become a writer by writing. It is a yoga. And to me, when I read that, I had just spoken to Shri about 3 days before that, and we had finalized on April 8th. And the name that struck me then was not R.K. Narayan, though these are R.K. Narayan's words, but the name that struck me was Shreekumar Varma. So he's a man who's having the most, you know, to me, the almost 40 years now, Shri, right? Yeah. Of writing, and to him, I believe, and that's what we're going to explore today. It must be a kind of a yoga for you to be able to express yourself with the written word the way you do. And interestingly, in 2015, he won the R.K. Narayan Prize for excellence in English writing. So, and R.K. Narayan, I read from today's paper that is one of your favorite authors, right? So it's come a full circle, right? Just to help you understand, his body of work covers novels, children's books, poetry, plays. He's a playwright. He writes columns, and his work appears in about 15 anthologies. Right? About 15 anthologies. I counted it on your website. So I haven't. So that's a lot of writing that he does. And he was also a writer in residence at the Stirling University in UK in 2004, right? So that's Shreekumar Varma for you, ladies and gentlemen. Give him a big hand and welcome him. So, and apart from all this, of course, I'll start with the point that always drew me to Shri, apart from his writing, which is royalty. So I know he's very uncomfortable about talking about, or being addressed to as a person who's a descendant of a royal clan, a heritage, the one that he has. He's very uncomfortable with that. I'll give you an instance. The invitation for today's program was originally, the words on it were Writer Raja. And
it sounded like a Kamala Hassan movie, Vasool Raja.
So he shot it down and he said, no, I'm very uncomfortable with that. I have nothing to do with with where I was born. I'm very proud of my lineage, but I'm not really, comfortable with references to it in that sense. And I was actually punning on Writer Raja mainly because here's the king of words, and that's what we were trying to do. But he shot it down. So my first question to you, Shri, is how was it? So this is more to kind of, I'm sure this question is there in the minds of everyone here. How is it to grow up in a family such as yours? What kind of culture was prevalent in the family that nurtured you and helped you grow up? Some early thoughts about the life in a palace or in a royal family. How does it work?
Welcome, Harry. The palace, I was about 3 or 4 years when we left the palace, and we came to Madras. And here it was a completely different ballgame altogether because my father, who was the president of the Kerala Samajam for about 10 years, which is a completely leftist organization. My father, at one point of time, my grandmother's picture was on every house. And my father would take away her photograph and put the photograph of Subhash Chandra Bose. So that's the sort of person he was. He was a nationalist. Hindi was his great thing. So I was brought up that way. And 4 years, I didn't even know what was happening, what had happened during that time. But of course, there was a lot of respect, and there were people there were servants, and so that a little bit of that continued. But more than that, it was a culture of literature, music, and poetry. Unfortunately, though I am descended from great artistry, I have not able to paint or draw anything, but I take consolation from the fact that Rabindranath Tagore started painting when he was about 58 years.
So is there an artist in the making? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, there is. I will try. I have tried everything else eventually, so I will try that as well. And more than anything else, in the temple, that's where all the ceremony and so when I go to the temple, it's a completely different thing. And I'm taken there. That's when I realized that there is something different about belonging to such family. Otherwise, it's just the music, Swati Ravi Varma, his art, the poetry by Kerala Kalidasa. So all that is what I'm proud to belong to.
So there is tradition on one side, and there is the royalty on the other side. And but you grew up in Madras, in Chennai. What kind of influences in the early stage kind of directed you towards who you are today?
I guess I was pretty lonely in the beginning because I was the only, my sister was there, but we were just two of us. And there was a lot of walking along, and I lived in Nungabakum, I would have walked a lot and thought a lot. That's when I started writing. So
how early was that? When you?
Maybe when I was about. My first short story was published in a magazine called Adam and Eve, which I don't know if anybody's heard of. It was edited by Anjali Sarkar, and that was my first short story which was published. I was only about 15 or so.
Okay. And what led you? Let's talk a little bit about that. What led you to first? I'm sure you must have put physically pen to paper at that time. And what led you to A, write, B, actually consider it worthy of sending to a publication requesting them to carry it?
I was a storyteller from the beginning. There are old home movies where I'm a boy of 3 or 4, sort of walking around, sort of telling stories to my parents and other people. And I think they must have got bored and sent me to school. Afterwards, I started writing because I think that the influence was my father has published. He has written 3 books. He has translated the Tulsidas Ramayana into Malayalam.
Okay.
He has translated the Hanuman Chalisa into Malayalam.
Okay.
So that was a literary influence on the Malayalam part of it. And the English part of it, my mother also has published quite a lot. So that was always there. So I didn't have to sort of look outside too.
So you were quite clear that you wanted to be a writer. Is that how the journey kind of evolved?
Yes, because of stories. And movies influenced me a lot. So
are you a compulsive movie watcher?
I can't say no. My wife is sitting there.
How much of clarity do you think, or when did you get the clarity? Let me ask this question this way: that writing can be a career. Writing short stories, sending them to a publication for submission, and hoping that they will publish it is one thing. But to start thinking of an opportunity space called writing as a full-time vocation or even a calling, how did that happen? Was it during college or was it much later?
No, I did a lot of things while writing. So it was only much later, maybe towards the end of 2000, that I stopped everything else and devoted myself just to writing. But otherwise, I actually enrolled at the law college, and I was there for about half a year or something. But there was a strike there, fortunately. And so I...
This was in Kerala?
In Madras.
Okay.
So, because for 40, I think about 40 years I've called it Madras. Now I need an equal number of years to change it to Chennai. So, then my mother said, why don't you, there's this advertisement, and so I saw that and I applied and I got a job with Indian Express. So there, from there onwards, it was different because you're already writing. And I used to do this. I used to watch films and interview the directors. So I started off with some great people like Adur and John Abraham. So that I don't know if you realize that journalism is a fantastic stepping stone to fiction, writing fiction, because you observe, you take in details, you immerse yourself in a certain other life, and all that helps you in creating characters, even in a play, characters, and making something live. There was a movement once upon a time during the 60s called the New Journalism, where journalists reported like fiction. And strangely enough, at the same time, fiction writers started writing realistic stuff, very realistic stuff, as though it's actually happened. And that influenced me a lot, that interested me a lot.
So that time, so you were working with Indian Express at that time, right? So we'll go to that in a moment, but I had a question which came up from something that you just said. You said you were doing multiple things and it was only after 2000 that you decided to devote yourself full time to writing. So what were those multiple things that you were doing? I mean, I always had this question for you, never asked it so far. You've not done any of the things that royalty would normally do. Like you've not had a stud farm. You've not had racing cars, or you don't own a cricket team. Okay? So you've not done those things. So what were the multiple things that you were doing, and why did you not typically do things like, let's say, real estate or stuff like that? What kept you drawing you back into the world of
stuff?
You think?
No, I wanted to get into something on those lines, but not the start farm. What I have been doing, journalism. So when I came back, we started a printing press. And even though we were publishing brochures and designing brochures and things like that, I was also editing magazines for Bushwalk, Allen, and L&T.
The corporate magazines.
The corporate magazines. And then we started a magazine, Geeta and I started a magazine called Trident.
I remember Trident, yeah.
So a lot of people have used that as a springboard, and C.P. Surendran, the poet, Harish Vijur, the management person, a lot of people have started from Trident. And that was an exciting time. And I remember when I started Trident, and there was this health minister called H.P. Hande. So I had sent somebody to interview him. And he called me back and talked to me on the phone for about 1 hour, and to discourage me from starting a magazine and the perils of investing and doing this sort of a thing. And the final issue, when I realized that we could not go on and carry on with the magazine, that had an interview with Jayalalitha, it had an interview with Maneka Gandhi, it had a cover of Indira Gandhi. It was, and that was not letterpress, but the other thing, was that? Offset printing. And then I realized that we could not carry on any longer, and that thing was shelved. So we ended with a grand sort of gesture which the world never saw.
So, I'll come back to your writing part now. What was more powerful in writing that you saw that led you to shut down something like Trident, which is a magazine that with some more effort you could have you could have continued publishing? No,
that was not the thing. We can start off with stud farm. We can do anything, but writing a magazine is something very difficult. So financially we were not. So I had a budget, we knew where we should stop. So that's the thing. It's not because we lost interest or I was more interested in writing. Because we had this whole group coming along with us. We couldn't let them down by closing it arbitrarily. We had problems, financial problems. And those days it was difficult because
So it was a prudent business decision to
Yes.
not go with a case which was not financially viable.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's the.
Then we started a publishing unit, then we started computer training, and Hans was involved with that project, and Geeta and I, like Geeta was more than me, because she was the soul, I told you, everything behind that. And then I also was teaching.
So he taught at the Chennai Mathematical Institute.
That was afterwards.
That was afterwards. But he has a very, very strong profile as a teacher. He's taught for 13 years. You've taught creative English at the Chennai Mathematical Institute, and you also taught at the Madras Christian College, where you actually did your MA and MPhil. And you taught English literature and journalism, right? So yeah, so continue. So you were saying you were.
So my problem was that I couldn't face a crowd, an audience. I couldn't imagine sitting where the master used to sit, and sort of this entire body of students looking at me like you are now. So I went for this interview because one of my classmates is here, my juniors, Srinath, the famous. He, not Srinath, but this Professor G.K. Matthew was resigning, and he called up and said, there will be a slot for a year, why don't you fill it? So I said fine, because I didn't really think about it. But when I applied and I got it, Geeta will vouch for this. I contemplated suicide. Seriously, I couldn't. It was a terrible thing to happen. To sit there and. But my first class, fortunately, was an essay. I had to take an essay by Winston Churchill, in which he said even after his 250th talk, he had butterflies in his stomach whenever he entered a room full of people. So I thought if he could have that and get away with it, I could.
And that's how you motivated yourself.
Yes, that was, and parallelly, I was also in the Rotary Club. And when they used to ask me to do the vote of thanks, the entire meeting would be spoiled for me. That's how it began. But then, being, office bearer, being a president of the club, that sort of gave me enough. So these things sort of, fed off each other. College teaching. And another thing is, when I lectured students, sometimes I feel I got much more out of them than I could give.
That's interesting, yeah, that often happens, yes.
And literature students are not as exciting as science students to teach creative English. So I found those 13 years in the Chennai Mathematical Institute more challenging, more refreshing, and it gave me much more than I could have. Journalism, of course, it was, what I had experienced in journalism. There are a few funny things which happened in the course of journalism in Indian Express. If we have time after that, if the clock allows you later on, we can talk.
I specifically have a question on your Indian Express years, but just for the sake of the audience, I want to ask you a question which kind of connects these many things that you've just shared with us. So it appears that although you were born in a royal family, the culture was one of literature, poetry, music, and the arts. And you had this phase of early life when you were, you dealt with your loneliness in such a way that you could express yourself through the written word, and you started writing. And in a way, you entered the journalism space and worked with the Indian Express. And also, whatever business that you tried to launch was in the publishing space, right? So you did multiple things, all of them connecting back with writing in some way, with the written word in some way. Is that, when you reflect back on all of that, do you see a pattern? Do you see any reason why you were able to stay in that same zone and not stray from it?
I have been phenomenally lucky because things have happened to me, and things have happened to me which moved me from, a moment of doubt to a moment of great sort of satisfaction, even without confidence, as much confidence. But I was able to reach these things happened to me. There was sort of serendipitous things. Is that how it's pronounced?
Serendipitous. You're saying it right. Yeah.
That. So, for example.
So, was there a moment, since you're talking about lack of confidence, was there a moment when you?
No, I said not lack of confidence, but it's not because of confidence, but it was something which took me from.
Did you at any point even think that you don't want to be in the writing space? You don't want to be a writer?
Never.
Never. So that didn't occur?
That
didn't occur, okay.
So, I'll tell you of another sort of happy thing which happened to me. There was this, the British Council a competition for short plays, I think one-act plays. And I've never ever written a play. I had acted in one, I had directed a play in college, but I had never ever sort of written one. Maybe skits. And I wrote this play and it got me the second prize.
That is the Dark Lord.
The Dark Lord. After that, for 10 years, I did nothing. And then there was this Hindu and Madras players. It was in All India.
That was the Bow of Ram.
So that got the first prize. And then I had this fabulous person, this theatre person, this mentor who came and told me, whatever you write, you give it to me first. I don't think any playwright would have the luxury of having somebody who is a veteran in theatre coming forward and telling him, whatever you write, give it to me first.
So that gave you the confidence.
That gave me the confidence.
To pursue.
Yes, and you made an inspired choice when you selected your second speaker for the series. P.C. Ramakrishna. He was my mentor. So, the third one, again, there was a gap of 10 years. I don't know what this with the 10 years. But 10 years...
but you've done 11 plays totally, or more?
Most of it was rounded towards the...
Okay.
Sort of,
so it came much later?
Yeah, and smaller plays, short plays.
Okay.
So then Madras Players was celebrating its 50th year. And I'm also as old as Madras Players. So I felt that it was a happy thing that they asked me to do this play to start off that year.
Which was Platform.
Which is Platform. Which was done by Yamuna, and which had a strange idea. I wanted, when you're traveling by train and you look out at the platform, you see many groups of people and you see familiar faces of strangers. And you wonder what they're doing there and what they're discussing, what's going on over there. So this play is about, it's about 4 acts, I think, 4 scenes. And each one of, scene number 1 has a group of actors, scene number 3 have the same actors. So they are familiar looking people doing different things. And finally, you slowly get to, you have opposites. The same Bhagyan, it was one of Bhagyan's finest performances because she did 2 different diametrically opposite roles in this play. So that is something which I want to do. I always sort of experiment with what I'm doing. Sometimes it's like Agatha Christie is
great inspiration.
Favorite author from handed down from my mother. So when Midnight Hotel came in, I wanted a thriller with a ghost because I was always fascinated by ghosts, and magic was also something which I was fascinated by.
And you've done magic, you've learned magic, or you were just fascinated?
In Hippico times, there was a bookshop from where I used to buy books on magic and read them. And then I would try all sorts of tricks. Some worked, some didn't.
And I noticed that therefore magic and the surreal come more than a few times in your works.
Yes,
right?
Children's books I can do that safely.
Right.
The
magic store of No Chambu.
Yes.
So you've done that. You've done that even in the Devil's Garden.
And also one in play which the Balavidya did.
Which KK directed.
Which it was not KK, he supervised. Called Nathu's Dream.
Nathu's Dream, right. There was a lot of song and dance also.
Yes. And I wrote the songs and that was fabulous. I wish somebody would give me. I always look at Ram and I say such things. He gave me a musical with a lot of songs.
So, I want to come to the writing process. I think I'm very curious to know how you write and how you transcend so many genres at the same time, But I want to go to a phase which could have tempted you to do something very different. And the question therefore is, why didn't you do it? So I understand that when you were with the Indian Express as a journalist and later with Cinema Today as a film journalist, writing films, and you were reviewing films, so you were Utna Baitna, everything was with the film community. And you had friends like Amjad Khan and Devanand who offered you to join his political party, and Amjad Khan read out shairis to you.
No, not read out. He was driving the car. He was so proud of the new Mercedes Benz that he had. So we were there with him, and Agha was also one of the passengers in the car. And he was spouting shairi.
Oh, like it was flowing through him.
Yes, and I didn't know that he was a poet. And also he had I think a wicked sense of humor, delicious but wicked sense of humor.
So there was Raj Kapoor, there was Dilip Kumar, and you were connecting with all these people, and you were a writer. So I have a very simple question: how come you haven't ventured into that space of screenwriting? And why did you move back from Mumbai, where screenwriting could have been such a thriving business and opportunity? Why did you come back to Madras, Chennai?
You must remember this was in the 80s. It was the we had just entered the 80s, so it wasn't like it is now. It wasn't a very welcome sort of place.
Which is Mumbai or films?
Mumbai.
Okay.
And films I wanted to, but I would have just gone on and on because I've seen people struggling there. I've seen all sorts of people struggling there. I have seen a lot of frustration, a lot of despair. And here there was something which was waiting for me, this press. And the printing press was, I don't know if I should talk about a little incident which happened.
Please, if it's coming to you, please share.
Another mischievous person in our family was my father's elder brother. So he knew that I was interested in writing, and so that day in the Hindu I had seen a small advertisement for a printing press for children, which is made of rubber and it sort of must have been so big. So I wanted to buy that. And I told my uncle, and he said, I'll tell your father, and we all got into the car and we went to this place. So I thought it was a shop where you can get this. I didn't realize he had taken me to a place next to Higginbotham's called Associated Printers. And my father thought it was some small, you could get things like that. So he asked him, there was a man at the desk, and he said, so how much would be a small, simple press press cost? So he said it would cost about 15. So I had about 20 paise in my purse, 20 rupees or something like that, in one small little purse, which I had collected over the months. So I said, I have. And then he said, where is the press? And he showed me one of those huge monsters and said, this is the press, 15 lakhs. But I told you, I've been enormously lucky. From that moment, after Bombay, I came back to Madras and we started a printing press.
So was that incident in a way a motivation for you to want to come back and set it up? Is that what you're saying?
It was always there. I wanted to start. I had done my own magazine once upon a time. It was a handwritten magazine. And I used to type it out when I had a typewriter. But I wanted to have something printed in my hand. And that was...
And that drew you?
That drew me to a lot of things, like fiction, like holding my own book in my hand. But of all these things, I should tell you that the satisfaction I get as a writer, the immediate satisfaction is when you sit in an auditorium and watch your characters on stage speaking your lines. I mean, that satisfaction is something which I don't think even a novel, writing a novel and holding the book in your hand can. Even though it is appropriated by other people, even though that is the least of your own work, because there's a director, there are actors, there are lightmen, there are music people, all sorts of people are involved in your work. But that is where you get the most satisfaction, because you know immediately whether something works or not.
Fantastic. I want to just say, share what I'm picking up here. I think if you look at the story so far, it's always been coming back to expressing himself as a writer in whatever he has done. And in a very strange way, he's made these choices against what could have been more tempting choices, right? Whether it is getting into a line of business that people with a lot of support and backing may want to get in, or in your case where you were in Mumbai with the filmy crowd, with the industry people, and you could have ventured into that space, but you came back to express yourself as a writer in the purest sense. And now you're talking about writing, the joy being higher when you're seeing your work being produced and staged on, by theatre groups. So as a playwright, that gives you a greater joy. So let's talk a little bit about your writing process itself. To me, and I'll quote from one of your poems. I think your poem is titled "Let Me." If I'm not, correct me if my memory is playing hard here. So "Let Me," there is a line which says, "The world of a writer isn't by words, isn't filled by words, but by the silence of words." And when I read that, it connected immediately. So the world of writer isn't filled by words, but the silence of words. So writing is such a solitary process, right? I think in every other art form there can be a collaborative experience, but writing, like painting, is a very solitary process, right? How do you keep yourself motivated when you write? And what happens when you dry out, you feel completely lost and are not able to proceed? Let's say, people famously call it the writer's block, but there are times when you hit a dead end, a creative dead end. How do you deal with this? How do you deal with the loneliness of writing and with dead ends when you sometimes come up against them?
Basically, there are 4 kinds of writing that I have been doing. One is poetry, which doesn't figure in this question. When I'm writing a novel, that's when I sort of I'm most likely to get a writer's block. So then I write a play.
So you do get one?
Yes, I write a play.
Okay. Or you switch the genre?
Three of my plays, Midnight Hotel, I think Platforms, Midnight Hotel, Cast Party, and another play happened when there was a writer's block when I was writing. Because you are going into a completely different thing altogether, and for a play, it flows. Afterwards, I have to do a lot of rewriting and getting back to it. But the play almost sort of takes me from the beginning to the end.
So let's say you're working on a novel, you actually stop work and start work on a play.
Yes, sometimes I do both.
You parallelly process both.
Sometimes I do, because it's a different stage altogether. And then I'll have a deadline for a review or a cover story or something like that. So that also I do. But it's because writing sort of gives you a thrill, it's what you are writing at the moment works. If it works, then you can have parallel sort of things going on. If it doesn't work, you put it aside, and then you go concentrate on that.
So what you're saying is, if you hit a block, don't keep at it. Step back.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, because you have to maintain a distance, keep away from it. Otherwise, you tend to think that it's going to be terrible. You lose faith in yourself. You lose faith in what you're writing. There's a sort of depression. I don't know if you. It's a sort of depression that you get into because your work is not. And for me, when I write, Geeta knows. Sometimes, because in Maria's room was a, it had a certain.
It's a murder mystery, right?
It's not a murder mystery. It is a psychological sort of thing, and it's a Goa which is not the sunny, bright Goa which we are used to, but a rainy.
Yeah, it's set in the monsoon in Goa.
Thing, and there is a backstory of a Frenchman and this girl.
So there is the story of the writer Raja Prasad who
Yes.
who goes to Goa to write a second novel.
Yes.
So I had a related question on Maria's room. Was in a sense, was it autobiographical? Are you that writer who goes there to write the second novel? Is that how the inspiration happened?
After I finished my first novel, we had gone to Goa, and there was this temple there called Temple Mahalasa. And they said that this Mahalasa is actually a Mohini. So my first novel was called
Lavender
Mohini. So I said I'd bring a copy of the book next time I come there and give it to them. So I came back again. It was a rainy sort of 2 days, very, very stormy. And so we got down from the train and we hired a taxi, and the car wouldn't go further because of the water. We got into a bigger vehicle and both of us were sitting there, and then suddenly we realized there was this couple at the back. We hadn't even noticed them. So I was going there to write a book set in Kerala.
Okay.
But the moment this happened, the entire thing changed, and that's how Maria's route begins.
Okay.
So everything came in over there, and I started writing this thing. But what I was saying is, I get sort of, I don't know if you can say possessed by my novels, but she knows each time I write something like that, it affects me a lot during those few days. Then I'm back to my old normal.
When you say you're affected, are you affected by the characters or the
mood, the setting? I've become part of that. It's very strange, but I sort of live some of those moments.
Then how are you able to switch between the genres? When you are in the space of creating
No,
one.
that's when there is a writer's block.
Okay.
See, then if I go in any further, it's going to be disastrous. I know that. So that's when I would want to go into a completely different. If I don't write at all, then I wouldn't be able to get back into writing. So writing different types of things sort of helps me sort of keep myself anchored.
That's interesting. I'm still in amazement of the fact that you can write poetry, you can write novels, you can write children's books, you can write stage plays, and you can at the same time also process a typical media report which has to be filed. Could be a review or could be a cover story, as you said, and you can switch these genres very easily.
Actually, a lot of people can do that. I know one little girl who can do that, who's sitting there. She writes fiction, she writes plays, she writes.
So you don't think too much about it?
No, I mean if you're happy with what you're writing.
I was coming to that. Good. Go on.
If you're happy with what you're writing, I think everything works. And I have this thing which I used to tell my students, that we are all like a sort of a violin. And as we sort of draw the string down, draw the bow down the strings, you produce different sounds, different pitches. And we've all got it in us. Music, everything that we don't do. If we just think about it, what we are capable of, it's just that lack of courage of trying. That's what keeps us. So I just wanted to explore, experiment maybe, and stumble and come back and see if I could make something out.
He's being his modest self, but I think what I'm picking up here is that if you're happy doing what you're doing, then you can do many things. And there's a lot of talent within us waiting to be expressed. And the metaphor of the violin really is about being able to produce different kinds of work within the same space. And that's, you're just being modest that anybody can do it, I'm sure, but I think very few people apply themselves. So do you have a writer's discipline? Do you have like, I have to do X number of words this week, and do you work like that, or do you go with the flow of it?
I used to. Now, the past maybe 1 year, I've just been going through old sort of work. But I used to do that. I used to sit there because that's the only way you can function. You think about it, you create, you let it, imagination produce whatever it's producing within you all the time. I again talk about this electricity. It's all flowing all the time, but when you put on the switch, it comes on. So when you're sitting there, that's when you're prepared for it. That's when you write. But it's all the time. Even when I'm looking at you now, there could be another novel.
Wow. And what would you call it? Talking about names, I'm very intrigued by some of the things that you come up with. Like, where do you go and find a name like No Cham Moo, the magic store of No Cham Moo? Of course, it's a children's book, but how do you come up with a name like that? You also like Gabo a lot, right? I mean, you like him as a writer, right? Gabriel Garcia Marquez, you like him a lot. And there's a lot of magic realism that his work contained. And your work, does it borrow on some of that? Is there an inspiration element there?
No, basically it is it's that you can go to places where people don't normally go. I'm talking with the writer. You are scared of stepping away from the accepted popular format, template that people normally write. You have so what kind of a book is it? If you can't explain it, I think that's what you should do.
And that's how you choose your subjects? Is that?
There's no choosing. It happens. I have an idea, and I decide whether it should be a play or a novel. And if it stays with me long enough, if it sees another world, another time, then it's a novel, and I stay with it. In fact, I have one completed novel which I'm still working on. I'm ready, but I'm still working on it.
I heard that your first ever novel remains unpublished. Is that?
I was only about 16 or 17, and my only reader was my listener was my grandmother. She had it reflects very badly on me, but she had ruled a kingdom once upon a time. And then I had subjected her to this torture of, she was in this room lying down in a bed and she couldn't move. And I went there and started reading out my novel. So maybe that's why it was never published. It was called The Knives of Nama. It was set in Egypt. It was a mystery, a murder mystery.
And it still remains unpublished till today?
Yes, it's in 3 books which I am trying to locate even now. Handwritten.
Okay. Oh, you don't have access to the manuscript?
It's somewhere at home. And the terrible thing about when I stopped reading to her was I used to look at the encyclopedia and all that. You didn't have Google those days. So I used to look at the encyclopedia and do my little research. And there was this, one of the murders was this in administration of a medicine called Salvarsan. I didn't know it was medicine for syphilis. So my grandmother said, what? Why did he take Salvarsan? I said, I don't know, it sounded very exotic. And then I stopped reading to her.
Does it matter to you that your work must be published and must be read? What I'm asking is, are there regrets that some of your work didn't get published? So is the process of writing important, or is the process of publishing, seeing it get into the hands of a reader, or in the case of a play, coming alive on stage, that is more important? What's more important from your point of view?
Writing it is absolutely fabulous sort of time that I spent with myself and creating on that. But suddenly when I hear some reader talking to me about some character, some moment, I went to a girls' college, Meenakshi College, and I was talking to them, and suddenly this girl gets up and says, why did you have to kill that uncle? So when people get so involved with the characters and they sort of question me, I think in England, somebody from somewhere whom I didn't even know could get their hands on this book asks me questions about Marmakatayam and Sambandham and things like that in Lavatory. So I think that's the reception, the reaction, the response. It is very immediate, it is there. But this you get suddenly, or I mean, you find out sometimes from the internet, you suddenly see two people talking about your book. So that gives me great happiness. That something which I've created, the world which I've created, somebody else is sort of enjoying and talking about it.
So while you welcome the attention that your work gets, it's the greater joy lies in creating it. That's what I'm hearing you say.
There are two different things. This, you make it happen. You make it happen. The other thing happens as a sort of byproduct, and you're happy that it happens.
So there's great joy in the process for you. There's great joy in the process. Pari Raja Parishi Raja is a historical book for children. It has a lot of history, and you talked about a lot of research that went into it. How come you never wrote a book on the Travancore royal family itself, which is steeped in history and so much of richness of heritage, and something that's very close to your heart, but you haven't ventured in that space at all? Or have you and you have not talked about it?
No, actually my grandmother wanted me to write about the time when the family left Charakil in the north and came down to Travancore and that sort of time and all that. But at that time it was too big a thing for me. And then there was a moment when they wanted me to write a book on Ravi Varma, because I was privy to all the personal, the private things, and those are not the womanizing things that these films talk about, which is terrible. Just imagine if they talk about your grandfather and say he was a womanizer. Would you be happy?
I don't know.
So he was a great man. He was a poet. He was a spiritual person. There was so much more to him. And I wanted to write that book to get people away from this impression. And I have still this letter from David Davila saying, dear Shreekumar, I'm still waiting for the book and we are happy to be able to publish. I couldn't. I thought it was too big for me.
You still believe so? So the project has never been worked on?
It's because I'm lazy. A lazy person can write fiction, but a strong person who's an activist can write something like that. But Parishi Raja also, I found that there was this either a lot of adulatory stuff about him, plays, making to be a big mythical person, and the other side of him, which is the British version of him as a bandit and things like that. So I had to find out what he really was. And he was not a 6-footer. He was a small man, a powerful man, a man who could defend his people against the British. So I went to Parashi, I interviewed some of the relatives because they are related to my wife. Package, a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine called Shreekumar Varma, he had sent me a lot of Xerox copies of this Logan's manual. So that was a great help to me, and I created. I've seen the place where it was killed, and I went there and saw all that.
So research is a very integral part of your
That book.
But how something like, let's say, Lament of Mohini perhaps could have come from the fact that in your own family
I was talking about two families. One is the royal family, which so many people had spoken to me, and I knew. I mean, I've been hearing these stories. But the other thing was the Namboothiri family.
But you talk about 5 generations.
5 generations,
right?
So you talk about certain times which are inaccessible now.
So my question was, when you have to do research, like you said, you went to Goa, and so you actually went to Goa in a monsoon time. Right?
No, actually, I did speak to Abraham Irali. I asked him, what do I do if I want to get something from history? So he said, is it fiction? I said, it's fiction. He said, forget history. So I just had the basics, and then I worked on those basics and created a story. That was a backstory. But for this Lament of Mohini, I read memoirs of a Namboothiri scholar in Malayalam.
So there is some back work that goes in.
I know, now I'm a little lazy. And only now I could have written those 2 books. But now I'm...
Do you read to keep yourself creatively inspired? Do you read other people's works?
Actually, because of my reviews, they keep sending me books. They ask me, can I send you this book? I say no. Can I send you this book? I say yes.
Okay.
So I have a book with me, which is for a review.
Okay.
And because of the first review that my book received, I never ever I'm never vindictive, or I never, use sarcasm or bad humor on such writers.
I didn't know this. I could have asked you to review my book when it was published. No, everyone's been charitable to me, but it would have still been a privilege to have you review my book. But thank you. I have a very, very important question, which is, and this is a question that you can choose to answer any which way you like. So you come from a very illustrious background, and you tried your hand at a couple of businesses, and you talked about financial trouble, and therefore winding up the business before things went out of hand, unlike in my case where I went the whole hog and burnt all my fingers. So my question is, when you are in that state where you have to have a financially sound perspective of life, and you embrace writing, and you have embraced writing, and you're at that critical point where you can continue to put more businesses on the table, you actually take a choice, make an informed decision to plunge deep dive into that, writing, which is that 2000, around 2000 you said you stopped doing everything else and focused only on writing. How did it come about? How did this decision come about when writing is not exactly the most lucrative lines of work, right? Financially, it takes a long time to become very viable and very, very prolific with your royalties coming in and all of that. So how did that choice happen? Saying, let's
what
stop
royalties? What royalties? That's it, royalties.
The royalties from book sales. I think
about 7.5%.
So how did that decision happen? How were you so convinced that I can take this decision now?
For one thing, for quitting, the other thing was because Geeta was doing a lot of work which I was, while I was writing, Geeta was taking the brunt of it. So that was, after some time, it became a little uneasy. I mean, I didn't want to put her into all this sort of thing. So that decision was made. Then she was also teaching, then I decided to, then there was a very interesting thing that we wanted to take our entire thing to Bahrain. There was somebody interested. So we, an entire, public, this training career, personality building, and also computer training, and one entire thing which I was, we wanted to start in Bahrain. So it started out very well. The idea was very thing, and we interviewed people, and we got them all right. And then they said there is a certain period during Ramzan or afterwards when nothing works. I said, come on, something or the other will work. But actually nothing worked. So at that point of time, my father was not well, and the doctor said, you have to remain here. So that